cover some material germane to your projects, answer any questions related to those projects, and basically make further progress on the syllabus. So let me start by asking, are there any questions related to projects that I can help answer right now? Any things related to ID1, expectations on the one hand, or for the other group, for me as a stakeholder, any questions? Yeah.
So the due date for ID1 is this coming Sunday.
Yeah.
So if we just tag our
Precisely.
as ID1,
Precisely.
You'll just take it from there at midnight, let's say on Sunday?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and this was something, if I didn't say it during the presentations from ID0, or the presentation that you folks gave, that was one thing I was very happy to see, was the use of tagging. And that's a good way to mark it very clearly as being this was the state as of that hand-in. And we'll be operating on that. Now, and I'll be with you just a sec. Remind me names again? Will and Matt, yeah. So one thing is we will, because we set up this institutional account associated with the course, we'll be able to access that for the first deliverable, which will be marked in the couple of days within that week after the hand-in of ID1. We will, so when I say we, it'll be myself and Dale. It's possible we'll get another student involved yet as well, with past experience in marking this. And we will definitely be asking a representative from each team to come to the marking session, because almost inevitably in ID1 there are questions about the structure of the repo, about where things are located, or did you do X or Y that it seems likely you did, but we can't find it or whatever. And so particularly for ID1, we want that ability to dialogue and say, where is this, where is that, have you done this? And it's our chance to give a bit of feedback as well. So we will be making arrangements with each team to meet with you during that time. And normally it takes, 1 to 3 hours per deliverable per team. And so we'll outline a period of time for each team where one or more people from the team can come. It doesn't have to be the PM, the project manager for the team, but often it's a couple of people, like the lead tester, one of the devs, and the PM, or something like that. And so we'll be looking to have that dialogue. But at the least, we'd want a tag that we can identify clearly. This is the ID1 deliverable, and you can continue developing the system after that. It's no problem. We'll just be making our references to that tag. Is that helpful?
Yeah, and just jumping off of that then real quick. So if we have something like requirements document or any documentation of stakeholder meetings,
yeah,
then just put it in somewhere that seems logical, and if you can't
correct. Correct. Some teams put it in Google Docs. Some teams are putting it in the repo itself. And what you'll find is, and you'll hear more today, there's going to be a fair bit of structured material that you'll be providing to me, but maybe more to the point, you'll be providing it to other team members to document things, so that the team's on the same page about, what things are tested by what test, or what the requirements are, or what are the paths through the program that have been tested or haven't been tested yet, or what do the manual tests correspond to in terms of those paths, or whatever. There's a lot of often visuals and structured information that you'll want to make available for us that goes beyond what can be trivially provided on a wiki, as valuable as that is. And so either in Google Drive or in the repo, you want to have option of telling us where things live. And one of the best things that you can do to simplify our lives and help us ask more substantive questions of you is if you can provide a README file that orients us, to the different parts of the hand-in, where we can find X, Y, Z. regardless of whether they're all in the repo itself or living in Google Docs or living on a certain URL that we can check for build status or whatever. Just point us to those things so that we know where they are. And if we can't get to a given document, at least the reference to it makes it very clear that it's available somewhere, and we can ask questions accordingly. Okay, so make sure that that you give some consideration to what you're handing in and to document that. Okay, but a lot of this is again, it's not about pleasing me. It's about making our time better, more efficient. Although that's valuable, it's really about having things for your group. So the team is clear what the requirements are. The testers are clear in their documentation of what different tests do. So if a test fails, the developer knows which test it is, right? The testers are clear about which things have been tested and which not, so that if a tester has a couple hours they can devote to the project, they put it into the most valuable types of tests, those that fill these gaps in testing. Or document testability needs so that the developers can put investments in test hooks or mechanisms to do appropriate logging, etc. This is about enabling your team. Enabling your team is all about communication. Hopefully, us, in order to market, will be able to ride atop most of that documentation that you provide for your team anyway. Because really, you gotta keep your team in sync, okay? Yeah. Good questions. Other questions here? Yeah, Matt.
What kind of questions what kind of testing do you expect us to do for prototypes?
Prototypes don't need, so if you have a spiked prototype, by definition, a prototype is code that is what? Throwaway code. It's throwaway code. Look, spiked prototypes are to learn, how does A play with B, technology A play with B, or how do I do this in this framework? I think I know through the documentation, but you actually put together some tests or some code to do it. That sort of code, I'm not going to be actually asking you to go through a lot of testing with it, okay? You want to make sure that it's basically working at some level, right? But a lot of the time it's fairly direct. What I don't expect, or what I don't want, is if you're spending your time in spike prototypes as devs, as developers, the testers should be doing something like planning out test cases, right? This is, you may wonder, well, where's the code? How can you plan test cases? You certainly can, right? You can think what the functionality of the system is and ask, okay, what will be some tests to test this functionality or that one, and document them so when it comes time to have code, you can plan out those tests, or you have an overall testing plan as to what sort of systems tests will be done, etc. That's something the testers can work on now, even if they're not testing spike prototypes, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not going to lean really heavily on testing for spike prototypes because it's throwaway code. It's something you build and move beyond. And I don't expect you to have extensive, significant testing of that as part of the requirements for the course. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. So for our first incremental deliverable,
Yeah.
we're only coding prototypes. You don't expect to see any testing done on any of those?
Well, okay. So I didn't say that ID1 should always, to be clear to answer your question, I have two ways of interpreting that, so I just want to be very clear. ID1 often consists of a lot of spike prototypes, right?
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't have to be all spike prototypes, and there have been projects in the past which have had no spike prototypes. They've actually gotten going on a subset of features. And so far be it from me, to say that ID1 is all about spike prototypes. But it can include spike prototypes. And look, if there's spike prototypes in it, I don't expect the testers to be putting their efforts into that, because at the end of the day, that's not the high leverage thing for testers at this point. A bit of testing for the spike prototypes I'd welcome, but there's a lot of planning of testing to do beyond the spike prototypes. There's, planning for the system tests that'll be in place, how you're going to manually test the system, included with automated tests. There's thinking through, what sort of testability needs there are and what sort of test hooks you might put into place. I consider that higher leverage than doing a lot of testing for spike prototypes. Do I expect, will I really ding you if there's no testing in place for spike prototypes? No, I won't. I expect those testers to be busy on things that are higher leverage. It's my own view. Putting a lot of testing effort into spike prototypes to create automated tests, it offers some value, but I don't think it offers as much value as some of the other purposes which testers to go in. So I don't attach a lot of value to it. Yeah. Okay, other questions? Yeah.
For the formal reviews, is there anything that you would specifically be looking for us reviewing?
Yeah. So early on in projects and in this class, reviews play a particularly important role relative to realized tests because such a small code base present that it's hard to put a lot of effort into running bodies of tests because there's not all that much functionality to test. Maybe a bit for spike prototypes, but there's not a lot to test. Okay, and reviews are really important. So here's some things you could review. Review requirements documents, right? Some writing down of requirements documents.
Sorry, I meant, is there anything in particular, like in terms of what we'd be reviewing, some things I wrote down is like organization or simplicity or.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you restate your question? I must be
Sorry,
misunderstanding.
some characteristics that we should be focused on reviewing. I think that in the syllabus there's a list of documents that we
Correct.
can review. Yeah.
Correct. But when you're saying things you should be focused on reviewing, you're talking about informal inspections as peer reviews, or are you talking about just like properties of your hand-in that you should be trying to optimize?
I'm thinking about formal inspections. Like, is there anything we could say, like,
Oh.
scale of 1 to 5?
I see. Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, the problem is it depends a lot by the type of hand-in. So, like if you're reviewing test cases, or you're reviewing requirements, or you're reviewing test matrices, or you're reviewing traceability information in a set of documents, those criteria will be different. If you're reviewing code, there's a number of things you can review. How well commented the code is, the degree to which specifications are present, whether the code is of appropriate length, and the degree to which it's modular. Those are some criteria that you could use in review associated with code. And those aren't the only ones. Naming conventions is another important one. To what degree are the names used in the code clear? To what degree does it have documentation on who wrote it and when? Those sort of things. Those are valuable. You might consider those in review documents, but to say the least, it will be quite different if you're reviewing requirements, where you may have criteria associated with ambiguity and completeness and the degree to which it's concise. Those might be 3 attributes. I'm not gonna tend to police those. I actually don't require from the inspections a formal scoring metric. I do not. But what I do require is feedback on where this falls short, okay? But it doesn't have to have a scoring metric that you judge it from 1 to 5 along these 3 lines. That's welcome, just like testing for spike prototypes, but I'm not gonna enforce that. Is that helpful?
Yep.
Okay, good. Other questions? Questions? Nothing right now? Okay, so hearing none, I will dive into a bunch of coverage